Hi there, my name's Aaron, and I've been thinking recently, do you remember when games were made to be completed? You could blast your way through the campaign in a single weekend, achieve all the achievements and then just move on to the next big thing? Well, save for a few gems like Red Dead 2, Control, Death Stranding, things aren't quite like that anymore. Games aren't made to be completed and they'll have you shooting, stabbing and jumping until the ever-vigilant blue light of your trusty PS4 fades into distant memory. That's right, I can't afford a PC. The games I'm talking about, of course, are live service games, or games as a service, or living games, whatever you want to call them. I'm going to stick with live service games, or LSGs, because who doesn't love an acronym? So to the uninitiated, you may be thinking, what is an LSG? Well, the basic premise is a game that aims to be played long after its release and will generate revenue through things like microtransactions and DLC. So you can spend to your heart's content on skins for your weapons and costumes, the best emotes and sometimes some in-game boosts. Now there are many examples of the LSG in the modern gaming landscape, but what started it all? Well, it's based on the likes of World of Warcraft, which would continue to update and release expansions upon a base game years after its release, and even has a new expansion scheduled for this year, which is a whopping 16 years after the initial game came out. This then extended to the likes of Team Fortress 2, Counter-Strike, League of Legends, games that kept adding to the experience, kept their players engaged and, more importantly, kept the money coming in. Then jumped to 2014 and we're seeing debatably the biggest and most popular attempt at the LSG in the form of Bungie's sci-fi looter shooter, Destiny. Destiny levitated towards its players as gloriously as the Traveller itself, with a massive budget and a roadmap looking years down the line. But where Destiny differed was its use of real-time elements. Vendors, events and resets meant that Destiny didn't just want you coming back when the next expansion rolled out, it wanted you dropping in multiple times a week. Tuesday had bounty resets, weekends had exotic weapon vendor Zua, and clear your calendar, the Iron Banner's on this week. Destiny made the world of gun crazy guardians feel alive and lived in, and granted it took a while to get there, but with the additions of Prison of Elders, Trials of Osiris, extra planets and modes and so on, the experience improved. Following Destiny's success, naturally we saw a flurry of similar games following suit. We had The Division and its sequel, Rainbow Six Siege, Modern Warfare, Fortnite, Apex Legends, Battlefield 5, Battlefront 2 and even Borderlands 3. And then it started to spread to games that didn't traditionally fit the model like No Man's Sky, and even Assassin's Creed Odyssey gave it a go, trying to keep their games alive and relevant through content updates and free additional features. While LSGs are clearly the bread and butter of the gaming industry at the moment, like anything in life, they come with a host of their own issues. There's been a lot of talk about crunch time in video game development recently, and where unsociable hours and mandatory overtime are commonplace as companies squeeze their resources to make tight deadlines. It's been linked with high turnover rates and burnout, and was especially prevalent in BioWare's Anthem, as covered by Kotaku's Jason Schreier last year. However, while release dates can be the Hail Mary of crunch time, sometimes it's where the work truly begins. Giant game altering and content heavy updates ensure that LSGs are in a constant state of development. Drawing attention to crunch time also shines a harsh light on the corporate greed that the LSG format enables. I've just mentioned BioWare's Anthem, but it really was the game that showed that EA were desperate for another big hit in the constant revenue business. Through their rush production and tight deadlines, Anthem launched with a plethora of bugs, a bare bones mission structure and a tedious set of loading screens, which is a shame because the core gameplay is actually quite fun and the premise is interesting enough. But it's also highlighting the issue with LSGs, one that's been around as far back as Destiny itself, and that is developers or publishers promising content to come and taking the game's base content, what is arguably its base content, and taking it over the game's opening month. So that takes us on to the improving and evolving nature of LSGs. It's quite common for them to start out with lacking base content to then build to later success. No Man's Sky and Rainbow Six Siege are perfect examples of gamer redemption, as both games are still supported and have increasing fan bases. And while the effective steering of your video game to greatness can be looked upon as a positive aspect of the video game industry, paying £50 to £60 to then cough up more dough and patiently await the game you were first promised isn't exactly a good setup. But that brings us to the creeper successes of the LSG format, and that is the free-to-play. The free-to-play will stagger its content updates and usually take the seasonal approach, much like Apex and Fortnite, which have seen critical acclaim and mass success. Each new season will come along with new weapons, skins, characters, updates to the map, and while a lot of these elements are purchasable, they're entirely optional. This less intrusive approach really encourages players to spend that extra money on microtransactions because they're getting the game for free anyway. The free-to-play format has even been taken up to some extent with some of the larger companies, with The Division 2, Modern Warfare and Battlefield 5 all ditching the controversial Season Pass in favour of the more inclusive Battle Pass. just for the sake of non-bias, let's take a look at the other side of the argument and something that is an issue with LSGs and video games in general, and that is player expectation. Games are bigger than ever before and therefore more expensive. You have celebrity voice actors, giant maps, cinematics taken straight out of Tarantino flick. All of these things cost money to make, and as the budgets have soared in video games, the price of admission has only creeped up £10 to £15 in the last decade or so, and when comparing it to the likes of a cinema ticket, you're getting far more bang for your buck. This becomes especially prevalent with the LSG format because we're expecting there to be a campaign, side missions, a massive map to explore, multiple modes, events, and chuck in a wee bit of PvP for good measure as well. That's not to say that these games aren't making money, because let's be real, they probably are, but it begs the question of whether we as gamers expect too much from our games, but that may be a question for another video. It doesn't look like the LSG format is going anywhere anytime soon, as it's clearly still working. You could argue there is an element of gamer fatigue as players are becoming less patient towards middling experiences. However, there's also the logistical side of it. If there's a new LSG coming out 3 times a year, players just don't have the time to be taking up a game that demands hundreds or even thousands of hours from them. But moving forward, there is the hope that the LSG developers continue to improve their games and listen to the players that are actually playing them, rather than looking at release dates and number analytics. Personally, I love returning to a game like The Division 2 where I can see how it's changed and hopefully improved, and I think when you get the sense of adoration from the developers, it makes you want to come back and play and visit these worlds. So whether they get taken over by some other trend is yet to be seen. However, one thing's clear, it's a good time to be a gamer. Developers are practically fighting over our precious time and money, and that just means all the better for us. Thanks for watching the video. While you're at it, why don't you subscribe to BBC The Social Gaming? I'll see you in the next video. Bye.